Hello, hello. We are live.
Hey,
Ayun, we are alive.
Each, welcome to
I'm
Kumu.
I'm
Hey,
on it.
you.
I feel young.
Yeah.
Forget.
Siege, what's your handle? Or are we gonna make one? Is this
Hello,
a live?
I
fellow
think
young
we have to
people.
make one.
Oh, this is
We're
a
going
live
Yeah.
to.
Kumu account creation. Well, I can do it. You need your phone. You need.
This is a tutorial.
So
Ayan.
welcome to Kumu. So where we have
Yes.
our community, diba? Community.
Yes. So welcome to our Kumunizens, but also to everyone watching on Facebook Live, LinkedIn Live, wherever you're watching from. Hello. In the future, right? You can access this, the recorded version. For everyone watching now, though, please share the live, and we'll get this show started in a bit. We have a very exciting guest today, and awesome friend, as you can see.
So give us those hearts and diamonds and those
What other stuff?
Does
halo-halos.
this
There's food.
does this
There's some
count
food.
as a heart?
Yeah,
Pa,
yeah. It needs to
pwede
be like
makdo rin. Like, diba?
quantifiable. It needs to be a heart on my phone, Siege.
Ah,
um,
okay.
Yun na, diba? Korean hearts.
Have
yeah.
you heard of the heart hamburger?
Sige, show
Go,
it.
go, go.
Sample,
Demo.
sample, yeah.
So
Wait,
so
if it's a good
so
sample, send some diamonds.
Sige.
okay. So if you like the heart hamburger, you have to give us real hearts. Okay.
Okay,
So
okay, go.
Or hamburgers, diba? Sige. Go.
or real
Sige.
hamburgers.
Sige.
One.
Ano yan?
Oh my gosh! Wow.
isa pa nga, isa pa nga, isa pa
That
nga.
should be
You're
a
like
that should be a
Yeah.
GIF or a
Sige,
GIF.
sige. Tapos one last slow-mo naman.
uto-uto.
Okay, I hope we're getting hearts for this. This better be worth it.
Yan, yun.
Oh, there you go. All right, please show
Sige.
some
Pawi
love
ko
if you
naman.
love that. Okay, well, no, I'm just done sharing I'm
Sige.
sharing our stuff. There's like so many links to share right now. Okay, it's like this, and it's like, oh wait,
I'm
Yeah.
sure
messed it up.
too.
Pang
Okay,
VTR to. You're
yeah.
hired. So, ikikast
Okay,
na kita.
if you want
Papasikatin
to
kita,
see
Iha.
my hero's journey to getting the heart right, everyone, stay tuned to this. It will happen. Please share that link, and we'll get the show started in a bit. You can send questions, by the way, in the comments, whether you're on Facebook Live or Kumu right now.
Pero we
Um,
prefer Kumi, di ba? Kasi we are on Kumi.
yeah.
That's where we are responding. So, if you have questions and want us to read it first, send it via Kumi.
All
Can
right.
you guys smile? Because I'm taking a
Okay.
screenshot.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
1, 2,
Shy ako eh.
3. It's just.
Wacky.
Alright, thanks.
Wacky. Okay. Well, no.
Wacky.
Jump,
Serious.
jump shot.
Professional, everyone. The show is about to begin. Are we ready? Shall we do this?
One by one
Yes,
photo
we
naman.
are.
Okay. Okay. I think we're ready. And welcome. This is Hustle Inside the Industry, where we talk to professionals and find out how they got here, why they're doing what they do, and what it takes to do it. We're live right now here on Rappler, LinkedIn Live, and Kumu. So if you're streaming us on Kumu, please join in the conversation. You can send us some questions or some diamonds if you like what you hear, or if you like. Can you show the heart burger really quick, Siege?
Slow-mo ah. Yan.
Oh, if you like what you
Diba?
see, there you go. Send us a heart or a burger back.
And pamay na lang sa
Yeah.
comment section. So, as we said, we are on Kumu. So, if you want to ask questions, we want to read it on Kumu. So, if you're not yet in Kumu, you can download the app. It's Kumu, Kumu. And when you do, follow rapper.com. So, we spell out the .com, rapper, DOTCOM.
Nice. If you like this
Diba?
interview and you want to play it back in podcast form because we are a podcast, follow Hustle Inside the Industry on Spotify or any podcast platform. Really, this episode comes out Monday, August 2. As always, this is Powie.
And I'm Tristan, and we are part of Rappers Hustle Team. We are Rappers Hustle Team.
We are the
In a
Hustle
way,
team
yeah.
and the podcast team. We're everything, really. Tristan, remind me, how long have we been doing podcasts?
Oo nga eh, kailan ba tayo napasubo dito? It's
You.
been 2 years?
You're a
3
2-year
years?
podcaster?
Parang ano
Wow.
eh. Parang
Yeah.
the before times medyo nag-blur na eh.
I did like
Oh
an
yeah.
indie. If you remember, I did like an indie podcast, like just myself in
Yeah.
my apartment a while back. But yeah, inside the industry, like we're a bit over a year old. And here's the funny thing, we seem to almost forget that what we're doing when we podcast is like also its own industry, right? So it's about time we finally guested another podcaster on this podcast, specifically the host of the Go Hard Girls podcast. She's also the head of communications for Puma Podcast and a sports journalist. So please welcome our great friend, Ceej Tantengco. Hey, Siege.
Hi,
Si
Pawi. Hi,
Senpai.
Tristan.
Hi, si
Uh,
Senpai. Senpai kasi ano na eh, award-winning
notice us.
podcaster. So,
Notice
No,
us.
stop. I am Ceej Chan.
If you want
That's correct.
Siege
kun,
to
di ba?
notice you, you know what to do, everyone. You know
Crescent
what to
kun.
do. All right.
Hi,
So
everybody.
yeah, Tristan, you want to start us off?
So, syempre, we're talking about podcast, di ba? So, just to start things off, Siege, can you talk about Go Hard Girls? What's it
Right.
about?
So
Like,
yeah. So Go Hard
Mhm.
Girls is, I guess, about as old as your podcast. And for me, Go Hard Girls is both a podcast and a movement for women empowerment in sports. On the podcast side, what we do is we create audio documentaries that talk about incredible yet underrated Filipina athletes. And we talk about gender equality in sports. And then, apart from the podcast, we use social media and I give talks in universities and companies
Mm,
to spread more awareness about gender issues in sports and really spark that conversation because we're not talking about it enough.
right, right. Tristan, like, are you taking notes, right? Like, apparently we're supposed to
oh
be talking
naman.
at universities.
Oh
We like
no.
totally missed.
Don't you ba? Ako, minsan
Oh,
I enter the room lang, tapos
you actually
parang
talk about. Yeah,
uh,
yeah.
tapos the
It's not
professor
a lie.
say,
Oh
sino to? Di ba sit-in lang to? Bakit? Bakit sila
Don't
sa
you
harap?
listen
no,
to Hustle?
no, I forgot. Ano, di ba film festival person tong si
Ooh,
Tristan?
there we go.
Mm,
Film jury.
Mm.
Shout out to Q Cinema.
yeah.
Anyway. So, as you can tell, we all know each other here. And one thing that I think all of us have in common, among many other things, is we come from very similar like freelancer like indie origins with our careers. For you, Siege,
Pangkans
yeah,
indie. Di ba?
yeah. but yours specifically have been like I've seen you hop around between like sports and events and now this new podcast medium which we all love. So why don't you take us all the way back, tell us how you got started in your career and how you ended up where you are today.
Right. It's crazy because if you asked me when I graduated in 2012, whether I'd be working sports, I wouldn't have predicted it, let alone working in podcasting. So I got into sports late. My roots are in journalism outside of sports. When I graduated, I was a multimedia producer at GMA News and Public Affairs. I did that for a couple of years. Then I did advertising before I became a courtside reporter for the
Mm,
NCAA at ABS-CBN. And then from there, I started to, I guess, spiral deeper and deeper into the sports world. I was, rock it till you make it, diba? So I was a segment producer for the sports news show. I was
I love it.
I eventually put up my own consultancy doing communications work for professional basketball teams. But throughout all of this within the sports landscape, I've always been a woman, right? So I see and I experience the gender gap, and it's very personal to me. So that's what Go Hard Girls is for me. It's a way to center the experience of women and put them front and center. And on the podcast industry side, Go Hard Girls is a show that I produced with Kumu Podcast as my production, the production house that helped me create it. And I kind of grew with the company, and now I'm head of communications
Mm-hmm.
at the company rather than, on top of being a host.
That's what
Okay.
happens.
I
Sorry,
think
it's a
parang
very.
ano, sige, let's drill down. Kasi I think the through line, like, from all that you said, parang all the fields that you enter, these are parang historically patriarchal. I mean, the world is
Yeah.
historically patriarchal, but like the industries you mentioned, especially like sports, advertising, journalism. So, and we often talked about this in the past, na parang for you podcasting, like what you're doing, part of it's like literally giving a voice to the voiceless. So parang can you tell us more about, and you mentioned it, you mentioned it rin naman, pero can you tell us more about yung parang finding your voice in this landscape? Like how did you climb up, kumbaga, how did you
Mm.
break the glass ceiling? Tama ba break the glass
Oh
ceiling?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Alam mo, podcasting for me has been such a breakthrough in terms of my career in sports because it's been very liberating. Sports, like you said, diba, it's such a patriarchal world. I often walked into rooms where I was the only woman there, if not one of two women. Parang
Yeah.
ganon. And there's a lot of tokenism na parang, oh, ikaw yung babae dyan, parang hindi sausage fest. Parang ganon lang. But podcasting is such a democratic medium. Here, I'm able to tell stories that I might not have the chance to on TV if I was still doing TV. Back then, when I was a reporter and segment producer,
Hmm.
mahaba na yung 3 minutes, diba? For a report, for a segment. Mahaba na yun. But here in my podcast, I'm able to do 20 minutes documentary on a female athlete. I'm able to unlike, 'di ba, sa TV, 'di ba, kailangan may camera pa, problemahin mo yung budget. So most of the time, I could only record in Metro Manila. But during the pandemic, I was able to interview Irish Magno, even though she was
Mm.
under lockdown in
Hmm.
Baguio. I'm able to just spend the whole day at the boxing facility with Nesty Petesio, one of the episodes we
So
did in the
crazy.
past. And I'm
Yeah.
able to do things like I got the NU Lady Bulldogs for we had a 3-part documentary series on them. And we had 7 athletes on the show and each of them had about an hour of interview. And I can't do that on a
Yeah.
TV budget, right? But
Yeah.
with podcasting I can. And so I think it's really been a breakthrough, not just for me and my personal fulfillment, but being able to tell these stories that otherwise I might not have been able to.
It's good nga that you mentioned it kasi I remember like one of my favorite episodes sa podcast mo and we talked about this yung how in the Philippines there's no professional women's league. I mean I think these stories
Wow.
you
Yeah.
wouldn't hear about these stories if
Yeah.
parang you don't have the avenue na that's hindi man publicly accessible pero lower and barriers to entry. And then like people like you, journalists who utilize this space to actually give a voice to the voiceless, di ba? So yeah,
Yeah.
yun lang
Thank
eh.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought you were gonna recall that time you tried out for the NU Lady. But was that true? Was
Ako?
that
No,
Sino ba?
did you do did you do that for a train like or was that another team?
Ako nga. It's
Yeah.
not
you?
any Bulldogs. Grabe ka.
No,
I
no,
mean,
no,
I was
no,
this
no.
I
when you
got,
played volleyball.
yes. Alam
I
mo to. Yeah, when I
remember
was so
that. I
bad.
remember that.
Everyone,
I
tune
was so
into
bad.
Rappler. Dig into Rappler's archives, and you'll
Ano
find
yun?
Tristan for train like a
It's
volleyball
not,
player.
sina Eliza Valdez yun. It's
Ah,
volleyball.
okay, okay. There you
And
go.
then Tristan texted me after that. He was like, ang sakit-sakit ng katawan ko.
That's why you gotta stretch,
Grabe,
bro.
ano pa to? Laglagan session pala to. And
Yeah,
hindi ako na-inform
yeah.
eh. So,
Welcome to Rappler Talk Part Two. Hey, anyway, by the
the
way, for
roast of Tristan Ginampan.
everyone out there who wants to roast Tristan or send Siege some questions, you
So
can
she can roast
now
me,
on
di ba?
Kumu. So please, especially if they pertain to sports, podcasting, hosting, freelancing,
And me,
all
di
that
ba?
stuff, I'm sure Siege can answer it well. But going back to what you were talking about, right? This breakthrough medium that has, in many ways, enabled you to do your work better, right? In a lot of different ways. I'm curious because going back earlier, you had to like juggle a lot of stuff, and prior to that, this pandemic, right? Like, see, you and I met on a shoot, right? Like, we can't do that anymore. I mean, we're doing it now, and we're gonna be doing these special remote kind of shoots. I'm just curious. Um, Compared to like your previous workload where you were like on a different whatever each day with a different client and stuff, once the pandemic hit, how were you able to pivot and kind of build up your day-to-day workload again?
In the first couple of months after lockdown was declared, it was very hard you and I, we had shoots planned, right? We were supposed to
Yeah.
do. We
Oh
met
my
on a
gosh, we
shoot.
kept delaying them.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
met on a shoot. It was at a university, and we were supposed to hit up different universities. And then lockdown happened, and we never got to go. So, there was a lot of, I guess, dead air in my schedule for the first 2 months. But then, I was able to pick it up. And right now, I think my life is back to where it was. Every day, there's something different. I'm going to show you my planner because it looks
Sure.
like a
We got
crazy
Yeah.
person's
props.
Pakita mo yung
planner.
drawings mo, yung mga
Yeah.
paintings mo, and ano.
Oh, it's in
Ah.
a different one.
Oh my god, like
Wait, so
everything's
like
within
this is
reach.
my to-do
Diba?
list.
Oh my gosh, what's
This
your
is my
planner?
to-do list. It's the I think it's I don't know, it's called the Everyday Basics or something.
Yep, like
Everyday.
this.
Yeah,
Oh!
yeah.
Tristan, please
Nahiya yung Mercury drug
fulfill the
planner ko. Tago ko na
triangle.
lang yung Mercury drug.
Oh no. Okay. Take
Then,
two, guys. Take two.
I
Sorry,
have God of
everyone watching.
War. I have God of
Forever.
War.
Ayan, ayan. Okay,
Pwede
there
na
you go.
rin. Pwede na
Okay.
rin.
Sige.
Pwede na rin. So, this is my schedule. It's still like very, very crazy. Every day I still do different work. It's just that
Mm.
it's all through the laptop and I'm doing it from this spot. Everything that, every
Yeah,
guesting I've done, every seminar I've given, it's all from this spot.
you
And
found
so,
like the
I'm
perfect
back to
lighting
working.
in your home.
Yes, because this has windows and a pretty decent lighting. So, I'm back to working with a basketball team. I can't physically be at the games, but I still do the work from home. I'm back to, like podcasting never even stopped for me. And I'm sort of back to, it feels back to normal in a very strange way because it's the same amount of work and it's also very spread out, except physically you're in one spot, but mentally you're spread out.
So you mentioned nga na parang you're back to the same amount of work in the past, and right now you have to talk. We have to talk about the moment that's happening in sports right now. Now it's
Mm-hmm.
the Olympics. It's historic for women. Si Heidelin bringing home the gold.
Yeah.
Yeah. So parang what projects are you doing right now for the Olympics? How are you participating in all of this?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So obviously I'm
Diba?
not in Tokyo, diba? But
Hindi ba? I thought.
We can't tell. We
Yeah.
can't tell.
Yeah. Yeah.
you can't tell. This could be a hotel room, right?
Kala ko
From
Olympic Village yan.
uh,
Hindi ba?
You ruined the magic for our audience.
Uh,
Anyway, yeah.
no, this is
Mali
not made
pala,
of
mali pala
cardboard.
Pawi.
So for the Olympics, we have a mini series, a mini podcast series. It's a collaboration between our company Kumu Podcast and Inquirer Sports, and so I get on a call with the Inquirer Sports editor Francis, who's over there in Tokyo,
Shout
and
out.
we
I hope
talked
you're
and
watching.
hey Francis, and then we record something. We record an interview. I talked to him about what's going on, and then we cut it up and then we turn it into a podcast. So that's what I'm doing for the Olympics, and it's pretty cool because for Go Hard Girls, we've already done these interviews in the past. We've already covered Irish and Nesting, and we're just like, yeah,
Right.
you guys love Nesting. Listen to this, and my big thing for Go Hard Girls this Olympic season is I started a TikTok like a
Sige,
like a
savage love
young
nga.
person.
Sample nga. Sample love.
Oh,
Diba?
okay.
Sige,
And
All right,
then
you
and then
pass.
Pawi,
Please send
kaya
some
man sa man.
diamonds.
Yan,
Ayan.
para mag-savage love.
Please send some diamonds. And
And
then go.
you know what's my big learning? Sorry, I turned on TikTok and so the sound came out, right? But the crazy thing for me about TikTok is how what it's teaching me about women, the market, potential market for people who support women in sports. I
Okay.
started the account just last week, and then I just want to show you how crazy this is. We started last week, and then somehow we've got like, well, how do I show? Or I'll just
Press
show
it.
it to you. So
Okay.
it's one. We got one over 1,300 followers. We have over 30,000 likes, and
Wow.
then our TikTok on Heidelin is at 300,000 views.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm like, how is this
I
happening?
would do it.
And I
Yeah.
love, right? And I love to see the comments because I still remember a time in the industry where people were telling me things like, it's always going to be an uphill battle for women, and there's not really a market for women's sports outside of volleyball. And, we can't give you that coverage because people are not interested. I have the data. People want it, and
Mm.
you gotta, it's time we change that perception that, um, I feel like a lot of people in the traditional sports industry are operating off of assumptions that don't actually come from data, but rather from
Mm.
their
Yeah.
own personal experience.
Amen. Wow.
So, for example, the idea that they think of, I've heard this so many times. Most of our readers on this website are men. I'd hear that. Like,
Hmm.
we're a sports website, 85% of our readers are men. So, we're going to put out content like bikini galleries of athletes or whatever. But what they're not taking into consideration is it's not like 85% of sports fans in the whole world are men, right? There are
Mm.
a lot of female sports fans, but you're not
Yeah.
creating content that serves them. So obviously they're not on your website.
Yeah, that's still a big
And the big
population.
learning is,
Yeah.
right? If you create content for women, the women will come, the women will be like, give it to us because
Mm.
we're so
Build it and they will come,
starved
'di ba? Sabi sa
for
ano,
it.
sabi sa Field of Dreams, 'di
Yeah.
ba? Build it
Right.
and they
Yeah.
will come.
There you go. Tagline. Um,
For
'Di ba?
Tristan, you know what
sure.
else? First of all, that was worth all the diamonds. So there's just a ton of gems right there, and it's very encouraging to hear. The other
Kaya
thing
nga
I
titinan
did
ko
get,
nga eh.
there you go. The other thing I did
Yeah.
get from that, Tristan, is that it's time for us to be on TikTok. Apparently, it's time because
Tawi,
apparently we're on
as a
LinkedIn now.
dancer,
Oh
it's your
no.
ano ba? It's your
Okay, wait.
responsibility
Never
ba
mind,
to
guys. I was just talking about for the podcast. We'll see. We'll see. Feel free to
Savage
send
Love
in.
nga.
I would
Sige,
watch.
Savage Tawi,
I would
Savage
watch.
Love.
I've never even seen the TikTok interface, but who knows? Who knows, Tristan? If you're in, I'm in. Anyway, to continue along this, right? You were talking about kind of like perhaps like oh, shout out to sorry, what's his or her name? Who's speaking right now? Is that on your end, Siege?
Siya actually guess natin talaga.
Oh,
This is
okay.
my dog. Hold
Yes,
on. I'm
Yeah.
yes it
sorry.
is.
My
Oh,
dog
Say
is
okay.
hi.
barking.
No.
Yeah.
He,
Just
is it
say hi to
If you want to see
Yoga.
if you want to
okay?
see
Hi,
the
Yoga.
dog drop diamonds, 'di ba? So
Okay. Anyway, my sound my
explain na
sound
natin,
recording is
tuloy-tuloy na
clear
natin.
when I speak anyway because I'm on a different channel. But anyway, so going back right to kind of like the momentum that's picking up, especially in light of these Olympic successes of these Filipina Olympians. Um, is there like now like a tangible shift? You think, Siege? Like it's like if we have a graph, are we really finally seeing like a move towards equality that's like constantly rising? Especially from your experience, right? You've been in sports for a while now. Have you seen it like year after year? Especially with this latest Olympic these Olympic highlights. Yeah.
Yeah, I think change is starting to happen.
She's just
I
coming.
wouldn't say ah, ah, cursed sentence. Um, I wouldn't say that the change is already complete
Yeah.
because there are still many ways in which it's hard to be a woman. The pay gap still exists. We still don't have the same opportunities as guys to play. I know for a fact that in the PBA, whenever I show up to work, diba, I am still one of very few women in the room. I
Yeah.
am still, I remember going on a trip pre-pandemic days. It was three basketball teams outside of the country, and I was the only woman who wasn't a secretary.
No.
So, it's still there. But I think the good news is that we are seeing a shift in culture where people are less accepting of women being objectified in the media. I see people calling it out. in a way that what just wasn't happening 5 years ago. 5 years ago, I wrote an article about the objectification of women in sports media, and then you had these older sports writers come at me with, "Oh, you're so naive. You don't understand. This is what the people want." So,
Bata ka lang, wala ka pang alam sa industriyang ito.
yeah, it's
Gano'n, di
like,
ba?
"Oh, we've been doing this for 20 years. Who are you?"
Mhm.
And so I see this younger generation push back and fight back. And I see the success of female athletes and how people outside the sports industry, just normal Filipinos, are talking about, hey, you should support women. We should fund women. You see all the tweets about fund women before they succeed, diba? Don't just bandwagon on their success. These
Mhm.
are conversations that I've been waiting to go mainstream, and it's finally happening. So I don't want to say that we're there yet, but I will say that we're in a much better place than we were 5 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, gathering what you're saying, right? You were actually addressing like the kind of like global gender inequality as a whole. Global meaning like you weren't specifically talking about sports, but what I find interesting, especially because you kind of like the the climax of your point was like the Olympic victories, especially with Heidelin and stuff. That's just such a symbolic apex. It's the fact that it's sports, right? And it's like it it's like the biggest probably it again, like you said, it's not necessarily a signal that like we've gotten to like a more comfortable place, but it's like the catalyst, right? It's the perfect catalyst for this kind of story. Yeah.
Yun nga eh,
Yeah.
parang feeling
And
ko, like when you, go Siege.
oh no, no, just
Go
just
muna.
I just
No,
want to say it's great that the women who are succeeding and are leading the way for us are people who look the way that Heidi Lin and Nestle do.
Mm, yeah.
you know it's
Yeah.
it's women whose sports have often been sidelined. And
yeah.
I am pretty sure someone out there, what do girls always hear? Don't lift weights because you'll get too muscular. What
Right.
do they say? Don't do boxing, you're gonna get bruises,
Mm,
or oh, you're gonna cut your hair short, you look like a boy, diba? And look at
mhm,
Nesty. My comment on Nesty's Facebook post earlier was like, pogi mo, and I was like,
yeah.
I love that we
Yeah.
have that diversity. I love the fact that our medalists this year, it's a maskuladang babae and an openly lesbian boxer. I love it.
Mm, mm,
And we need more of that representation for women. The
Yeah, kasi
diversity of
parang,
women.
and if you think about it, kasi it's like sports, it's very dichotomized. I mean, we keep talking about the patriarchal society, patriarchal fields, pero like all the more in sports where it's dichotomized na, okay,
that's
guys,
true.
dapat
Like
basketball,
it's
martial
categorized
arts,
specifically.
but right now,
Yeah.
yung nga, that's why we keep talking about how this is very symbolic as like, it's a catalyst, it's a symbol, it's like a nexus point. They use Marvel terminology na we're seeing a shift. It's symbolic that it is
Isn't
it
that just
parang
like
sorry,
science or something? Like
nexus point. Di ba? Science ba yun?
ellipsis and point. I
Yeah,
mean, I
yeah,
guess. Yeah.
yeah. Sorry, Marvel. Anyway, going back, I digress. Going back, parang yung nga, that's why it's such a symbolic victory that you're having women like this and parang in these sports who are winning. So, ayun, ang Haikyuu nga puro lalaki rin. So,
Hmm.
di ba?
By the way,
Break
we've
Haikyuu.
stereotypes.
we've gone this far into the conversation with all these name drops, but really, I gotta give a huge shout out to Margie Lynn Didao because especially for
Yeah.
as like she's automatically iconic just because it's the first time skateboarding is Olympics. Like I'm just hyped for that in the first place, and she was a finalist, right? So it's like I thought that
Nasa
was
And
Lin talaga
she
yun eh. Ang
and
mga
she
Lin.
has nice photo bombing game.
Di ba?
yeah, yeah, iconic, yeah.
Yeah, so
So
parang ano lang.
good.
Di ba ano ka rin? May Lin ka rin? Siege Gracia Lin? Christina Gracia Lin.
Ah, Christina
So, and
What's your
lang din.
anyway,
We're,
Gracia Lin.
by the way, did you
Go.
notice? Did you notice for everyone who's new to the podcast? We're both work and play. We are the the professionals podcast, but we go by our nicknames here, and we make a lot of jokes. So
Yeah,
that's how we do it over here.
like Grashalin. Anyway, we've talked about sports. Now let's talk about the other end of the spectrum, KCD, like podcasting. So like last year, podcasting really picked up. Siguro people say it's because of the low barriers to entry. Like anyone can get a mic and then record. Pero like, can you tell us more about podcasting as a medium? Like, what are the trends? Paint us a picture of the current podcasting landscape,
Mm.
especially like with Filipinos now entering it all the more.
Right. So the growth of podcasting globally is it's the fastest growing medium. In the Philippines, it is exploding. In countries like America or in the like United Kingdom, podcasting has already hit its peak. In America, they have this article now in the New York Times. It's "Have we hit peak podcast?" Because it seems like everybody has a
Yeah,
podcast,
yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
And then what they're actually observing is pod fade. That's a term that they use in the New York Times. Pod fade
Okay.
is the phenomenon of people starting a podcast, but then the average lifespan just being 8 months. And people are not able to sustain beyond 8 months. So, as we're celebrating the growth of podcasting here in the Philippines, I think it's nice to keep that in mind that as the market continues to saturate, we're eventually going to reach that point. So if we hit that point where everybody has a podcast and you know um, it's no longer it's kind of like blogging. You remember in the days of
Mm.
blogging,
Tumblr.
y-
Sorry.
Tumblr, right? You'd have
Yeah.
a couple of people who made it big, and then it was everyone else. I have a blog, I have a blog, I have a blog, and then a year later, where's your blog? Oh, it died. you know um with podcasting, the big question is, as the market continues to get saturated, what can podcasters do to stand out and make their product unique? Um,
So, so
and
pawi tayo, paano tayo mag-stand out?
Well, I
Not lang
tried the
tayo Siege, di
dancing.
ba?
I did
So,
some of the dancing, but
yeah.
that's not in audio form. So
Sounds na lang.
we had to
Stinge.
add narration to that. He is on his head right now. He is
Alam ko
spinning.
na, ASMR pod.
Oh my
ASMR
god!
dancing. ASMR
Remember when
dancing.
AJ Demaruco recommended this ASMR shoe shine on YouTube? Anyway, we should do
Sorry,
some of
Siege.
that.
Parang alam ko ang
Okay.
seryoso ng topic, pero parang mga ano
no,
kami,
it's
we
fine.
digress
Did
and
we,
we,
sorry, yeah, I know that was a rhetorical question. Did we get it right, Siege? Was that the answer?
And
diba?
the answer is finding what makes you different.
Hey? Okay.
It's like running a business, right? If you try to do something that everybody else is doing, there's gonna be no reason for people to go to you. If you try to be everything, sometimes you hear people say, "We'll talk about anything and everything under the sun."
Mm,
Then why should I listen to your anything and everything under the sun when I have this other guy doing anything and everything under the
mm,
sun? So, us at Puma Podcast as a company, the recommendation we always give people is find something that's uniquely yours and something that you're uniquely qualified to speak about. And find a hole in the needs of the people in the market. So in my case, right, Go Hard Girls, I was never going to
mm,
do let's just talk about this week's sports headlines,
yeah.
right? I was never going to do that because you already have everyone else doing that. But by
Mm,
doing something that's just very me, which is I'm gonna do women in sports. It's gonna be a documentary. I'm gonna
yeah.
I'm gonna give myself a really
It's a
hard
higher
time
production
and make
values.
a
Yeah.
documentary.
Damn.
I have a wonderful editor. Her name is Nina, and she makes these beautiful audio landscapes. She's amazing. There's just so much nerdiness that goes into it. I know that my product is unique. And so whenever anyone is like, "Oh yeah, women in sports podcast," that's us, right? So that would be my advice to
Mm,
where the podcast industry is headed. If you want to survive the saturation point, you need to find something that's uniquely yours.
So
nice.
next week, pawi, rebrand na natin ang hustle inside the industry.
Okay,
Parang
what's your idea?
magano tayo, mag-brainstorming tayo. Ano bang talents natin?
You didn't come
Uniquely
up with
us.
any ideas yet.
Wala pa. Ay, hindi ba to
Okay,
brainstorming session right
I
now?
I still think
Paano ko yung
the
agenda?
narrating my dance moves might work. Narrating my
Sige.
dance moves as I do them. There you
Ako
go.
na lang, I'll
Wait,
narrate my
CJ, if you didn't
reactions.
notice,
Wow, the ganun.
the reason we invited you to the podcast is so we could get a free consultation. That's
Yeah.
really what this
Ah,
is
alam ko
about.
na.
So
Hustle. Kaya dance podcast. So, si
ano?
Jen, tingin mo, like, if ang hustle ay gagawin natin talaga namin, like, ballroom dance
That's
with
not,
Tawi
wait. Hustle
podcast.
is a dance, by the way. Hustle. I know how
Kaya nga,
to
di ba?
hustle.
Do the hustle, di ba?
Yeah,
Sige, sample nga.
it's like you need no. You need a partner. Like this
What's a
is
hustle dance?
Sige.
What's a hustle
the
dance?
Sige,
audience.
turuan mo
You're
ako.
my
Yan,
partner
go.
right now. No, actually, parang siyang ballroom nga, but like for disco, it's like you're going like that. Oh my gosh, this is so fun.
Sige, ano yung counting?
Because that's why there's a
One,
song.
two,
Do the
cha,
hustle.
cha, cha.
Yeah, no, but that's. I
So,
think
si
that's where
sample nga.
people get.
Ano, ano.
That's where people get the most confused because I think the do the hustle has like specific, I know, but like hustle is like specific is a genre. Like you can do, but it's like salsa. You can take hustle.
I'm so
salsa.
happy. Nag-rebrand na tayo today pa lang. Ganun tayo
Okay,
ka-agile as a podcast.
Siege,
We're now talking
we can
about,
let you go now. We've
yeah,
pivoted. We're on TikTok. I already. Our social team.
yeah.
Yep, they already made the TikTok.
Hustle is
Thank
now
you,
a
social.
dance section of Rapper. About the
Awesome.
specific hustle
Yeah.
type
Thank
of
you. Thanks,
dance.
Siege. No, but actually,
Oh,
on that note, wait, did we get any extra
someone's
questions
asking
before
what
we
my
start?
TikTok is.
Okay, there we go.
It's Siege Savage
Yeah.
Love, di ba? Ano?
No,
At
it's
Siege
not.
Savage Love.
No.
Oh. Well,
No,
Siege, is
my-
this is the TikTok for Go Hard Girls specifically, or
Yeah,
your
my the
personal?
TikTok.
Okay, drop
That's
them.
my TikTok. So you can follow us at Go Hard Girls PH on TikTok.
Awesome. Okay,
Yeah.
so speaking of TikTok and doing completely new but exciting things, we wanted to know what's next for you. Obviously, this is like definitely a peak time. We were talking about the Olympics, but what else do you have lined up for the rest of 2021?
Well, something people don't know about me because everyone knows me as the sports journalist. But I also have a second podcast. My second podcast is called What's Up Araling Panlipunan Rebooted, and it's all about Philippine history.
Wow.
So yeah,
You need to
that's
subscribe.
yeah, I that's my baby. People think that I'm a sports person, but I was a nerd first, and in WhatsApp we have a new episode coming out soon. It's called Bakuna Matata, and it's about how the Philippines was part of the first ever mass vaccination program in
I think I
history.
knew that.
Ito ba yung
Yeah.
cow? Ito ba yung
Yeah.
sa cow ng Spanish
First cow?
times?
No.
My
Diba?
yeah, my cow, my smallpox, and then the
smallpox.
inoculation. Yeah.
Wait,
I
see,
know
so
the
it's
talk
sport.
about
I didn't
ongoing
know
now. You've had this
kasama
podcast
tayo.
going.
Yeah.
You've had this pod. It's live now. Sorry, what's it called again? So
Yeah,
that our listeners
it's
WhatsApp.
can
called
remember.
WhatsApp.
WhatsApp Araling Panlipunan Rebooted. It's been running for over a year. Our most recent episode was a collaboration with the Ayala Museum, and we talked about our pre-colonial gold, what pre-colonial societies
Oh
were
yeah,
like,
it's so beautiful.
and
Yeah.
we spoke with the curator of Ayala Museum who put the whole exhibit together, and she was telling us about how the gold was actually collected by Leandro Luxin and his wife Cecilia. So Cecilia was an archaeologist, and so um, what they did was, this was in the 70s during martial law. There was this gold rush, and they knew that if the gold wasn't bought up by responsible people, it would just end up being chopped up to pieces, and you wouldn't be able to preserve the
Oh.
culture. So they used their wealth to buy over 1,000 gold pieces, and they hid it in their house because this was
Wow.
martial law,
Oh
and
my
they didn't
gosh.
want anyone taking it, so they just hid it
Wala
in
pang
their
Bitcoin
house.
Tristan. Wala pa silang
Parang
crypto.
Yamashita. Ito ba yung Yamashita treasure? No. Sorry, I don't wanna mix fiction and history. Baka
No, this
makasuhan
is
pa ako ng...
this is from
We're
Surigao.
on Rappler, by the way.
Let's-
We only
let
speak
me
the
let me
truth
backtrack.
here.
I don't
Okay.
wanna
We'll edit that. No, but that's a
No,
great
this
exhibit.
is
I went to that exhibit. Yeah, fantastic.
yeah. She was talking about that part with the mannequin with the
Mhm.
upavita, the golden
The-
sash.
yeah.
Yeah, so they've broken that mannequin several times because the gold was just
Oh.
so heavy. And
Oh.
so she's on the podcast and she just shares stories from the museum, and
Nice.
yeah,
We'll check
we're
it
very
out.
proud of that. And I don't want to give it away, but something very exciting is happening with that podcast. We have a
Magre-rebrand na
Buwanang
rin
project
sila.
for
wika. Buwanang
Magiging
we
dance
wika.
have
podcast.
See,
we're working on
I think
something
they
that
stole our
is
idea, Tristan.
Yeah. Magiging
we're
dance
working
podcast.
on
Go, Ceej.
Go, sorry.
we're
Yeah.
work
Go,
we're
sorry.
working on something. We're working on something that is going to be able to help a lot of kids in public schools.
Okay. Well, we'll stay
Yeah.
tuned. We'll stay tuned for it. Yeah. Tristan?
But sa
Yay.
Siege, ang daming good ideas of like niche topics. Tas parang we're brainstorming on air. Anyway, so for other noobs like us, so Siege, do you have any bits of advice for like those who want to pursue the paths that you've taken, like in sports and in media? Parang give us those tips. I'm gonna take notes kunwari for
Yeah, there
others
you
siya,
go.
but
Well,
sige.
well, so I want to give tips for both podcasting
Mm,
and for sports, and then for women. So
okay.
those are the three things.
So,
So first,
Tristan,
my
we can
tips
only take
for
notes on one part, apparently. Okay.
Women, di ba? Hindi ba?
Oh, no, no. You're going to get back into Taekwondo, aren't you? There you go. Anyway,
Yeah.
sorry,
Feeling
Ceej.
ko,
Go ahead.
basta next year, kasama na ako sa team. Anyway. Sorry. Ang daming
so
digressions.
so what's that? So for podcasting, my advice to anyone who wants to get into podcasting is be different. Invest in your podcast quality. So go into it with a plan. Make the effort to have good sound quality, sound design. If you can create an immersive experience for your listeners, that's my advice for podcasters. The second one, if you're wanting to work in the sports industry, I would just challenge you to go into it with a mindset of not seeing it as a fixed industry. A lot of people go into sports and think, well, this is just the way that it is. I want to challenge you to have the imagination to think of what it could be. It could be a better place for women. It could be a better place for the LGBT community. It could be all of these things. And the way we move the industry forward is with imagination. And then my third advice for women in workplaces everywhere is that you need to own your space and you need to use your voice. Because whether or not your workplace is as overtly patriarchal as sports, you are going to find yourself in situations where, as a woman, you are going to get sidelined. And sometimes it will happen on purpose, sometimes it will happen accidentally. But the only way that you um, can be assured that you get a fair shake is if you take that for yourself. So take that space, take the microphone or whatever metaphoric thing is there in your office and hold that space because you deserve to be there just as much as anyone else.
Parang si
Yeah.
Kanye lang, di ba? Kanye.
Wow.
I'm
I'm
a,
inspired.
I'm a, I'm a grab the mic and say
I'm
something.
ready to do it. No, I feel like Beyonce.
Oh,
I feel like
yeah.
Beyonce. Anyway,
Queen
anyway.
Bey.
Okay, well, speaking of all these fun
Magbibinata
things,
ka yata
excuse
tayo
me.
ah.
Yeah, yeah. We're gonna wrap things now as we always do with the play of the week. We talked a lot about work. Now let's talk about play. Any fun activities or recommendations for our listeners to unwind from the busyness of business? Siege.
Ooh,
Yan.
well, obviously, we're all watching the Olympics right
Oh,
now.
that's
So
a
I won't
given.
even,
Yeah.
that's a given. For me, right now, what I'm watching is Itaewon Class. I'm a bit late. I know it came out last year, but I didn't
Oh,
get to watch it. I'm really enjoying it because I can relate to the grind of such it's a small business going up against a big business.
yeah.
That's how that's how you're always gonna feel if you're
And
doing
school. It
advocacy
started
work.
in school also. Yeah,
Yeah,
like I felt that.
I was like, oh, everyone had a bully, right?
Yeah,
In school.
yeah.
But I think if anyone who works in small businesses or startups or in advocacy work is going to relate hard to the themes in Ito Class. So I like that. And I am also rewatching Battlestar Galactica, which is my
Mm,
Oh my
favorite show in
gosh.
high school.
Sucks.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
Ronald Dimmer.
that's what I've been doing.
Yeah.
Nice.
We talked
Did
about
you
this.
watch that?
Anyway,
Do you have a favorite character if you've watched it?
Tristan,
nah,
you can.
I'm into sci-fi pero I like kasi at that time kasi probinsya, wala man ako like access. I only had DVDs, so parang Battlestar had so many episodes and I didn't
Yeah.
get into it. Pero like I'm getting into the other works ni Ronald D. Moore right now. Like yes, for all mankind. So that's a new show na I wanna get into. So it's an Apple TV Plus. Sorry, hindi ko pa to play of the
Oh.
week. Ah. I'm talking to her
Yeah, yeah.
about
Yeah,
the
that's fine.
same author, same showrunner, not author.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. So ako
So
na ba
what's
or
yours?
Pavi?
What's yours? Yeah.
Okay. Ako I'm watching another K-drama. You know, break gender stereotypes. So I'm watching Nevertheless, and hindi ako
Mm.
nakaka-relate.
Bakit?
it's
I don't get it. I'm
it's
sorry.
about
All your jokes are lost on me. You're gonna have to tell everyone.
it's
I think
it's it's
our social team
sige.
is sending
Yeah,
hateful
they're
comments right
reacting.
now.
Oh, they're reacting sa background. No, kasi nevertheless,
Tristan,
it's
please
about like
contextualize.
it's about basically yung mga taong yung mga guys na ang daming red flags, but then there are girls like who are who should know better. Alam mo yung stereotype na they should know better pero they keep falling for these guys na ang daming red flags.
Mhm.
So it's basically that. So it's a
High school.
frustrating watch. Yeah, high school, college, and
Oh,
si Jaira, our producer, parang madamdamin yung
shout out to
reactions niya,
Jaira.
in the background
Please,
of our chat.
please don't
Anyway, so that's
sermon
the
us at
basic
the end.
concept. It's based on a manhwa or a webtoon, so that's basically the equivalent of
Oh.
um, manga for Koreans. So
Ah,
webtoons,
okay.
yeah. So it's very chaotic, yun lang talaga. And parang it's frustrating kasi you see this girl and then this guy na who by all means ay ang daming red flags pero she keeps falling for him.
I
Ayun. And
can't
then
tell
aside
if
from
this is a
that,
recommendation.
Oh,
Okay.
alam mo, yung
it
parang ano
doesn't
This is a
siya,
sound like a
recommendation.
recommendation.
Ah,
it's kind of like like a hate watch. Not a hate watch kasi it's
yeah,
not
yeah, yeah,
actively bad. It's entertaining.
yeah,
But like when you
yeah.
watch it, parang, girl.
I'm one to talk. I'm a big fan of
yeah, yeah,
Safdie Brothers movies, so and they
yeah.
help me sleep
No,
at night for some reason. So I
yan,
guess I'm a masochist.
yan, yan. And
Excellent.
I've been diving into the manga slash anime called Monster. So it's
Okay.
basically parang true crime, serial killer, not true crime, but pero it's very like true detective, where a
Mm.
doctor tries to chase the killer na siya nag-save kasi he's a brain surgeon. So anyway, I'm still early into it.
As you were saying
So
that, my brain got it mixed up halfway between that and Itaewon Class because I was like, yeah, he's trying to chase the whatever of his dad, and it's like,
serial killer
anyway,
talaga.
it's like too
Talaga,
many
I haven't seen it
recommendations at
one.
once. Whatever
Sige.
the sum total of those shows are is probably an awesome show. But I'm not gonna recommend
Battlestar,
a show.
nevertheless, di ba?
I'm gonna recommend a platform today that I realized, hey, I've never mentioned this as a play of the week, and that's Discord. For anyone who's played Among Us, you've probably used Discord. But I used it before it was cool. Nah, anyway, um, uh,
Sure.
gamers were really like the early adopters, right, of Discord, especially if you're like a PC gamer. I used it for like stuff like Overwatch, but it's definitely been a regular part of my life now. I always have it on. I'm always online. I have different channels with friends. So for everyone who doesn't know, it's like, uh, Tristan, how you describe Discord?
It's
Uh,
basically parang ako kasi I use it in a school setting eh. So parang siyang
yeah.
classroom na their hangout, their rooms
Oh,
where you can
okay.
hang out, you can just work
Okay.
together, you can chat. So it's
Yeah.
basically it's Slack for cool people. So
Oh,
thanks to
shout out to
our
Naoki. Yeah,
Naoki, yeah.
that's a good description, or rather, that's basically what I'm trying to get at with this. What's so interesting about Discord is back when um it first came out, it was really just like an audio chat app, right? That allows you to audio chat while you're playing games, so you don't have to like leave the game to
Yeah.
just to chat or whatever. But now it's like expanded so much. As Tristan said, he's used it for educational purposes. I use it for
Yeah.
like e-numans. I use it to hang out with. Shout out to my Ricky Lee's script writing workshop fellow graduates and stuff. So we were just like drinking on Discord last night. But we also work on Discord. We have like a specific channel, like it's called Writing Cafe, where like we're just nakamute. You just have a friend there, and then you're just writing like quietly, uh, next to each other, so to speak. So yeah, Discord for everyone out there. I think at this point, it's an app for anybody and everybody to do some stuff with it. So yeah, that's my play of the week. Anyway, we're not gonna
We use
keep you any
Discord
longer.
also in the office.
Oh, well,
Anong
there you
game?
go. Oh wait. So we had
Are
what
you gaming or?
educational setting for Tristan. I didn't even we didn't even say
No,
gaming
for
yet.
work.
Gaming is great. Yeah,
Ako
and
yung
then now we have
academic,
work.
no? Sa grupo na to, ako pala yung academic.
But
Parang
anyway,
mali.
Siege, it's been a pleasure. I'm sure a lot of people want to keep up more with your journey and the kind of work you do. So how can people follow you and on what platforms?
So for me personally, you can find me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Siege the Day. That's CEEJ the Day. And then Go Hard Girls, obviously. So we're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get podcasts. Just look for Go Hard Girls. We have um, we have new episodes coming out, and we have older episodes that I'm sure you would love. So we're also on social media. We're on Facebook um, and TikTok as Go Hard
Hmm.
Girls PH, and we're on Instagram and Twitter at underscore Go Hard Girls. So please
Nice.
join us and let's support Filipino athletes
All
together.
right, we'll hop on right there too. You can also follow your hosts. By the way, I'm mostly on Instagram and a little bit on Twitter at Pawi Fiction, PAWI Fiction.
Ako, I am on Craigslist and
You
hindi.
okay? We're cutting that out. We don't have Facebook.
The
eBay though.
Tristan Sinampan in
Okay,
all
there you
platforms
go.
like Twitter, IG, pero hindi ako social media savvy. So,
Okay,
yeah. You can
we're
follow
working
me
on it. We're working on it.
if you want.
Um. So anyway, Siege, again, it's been a pleasure. I'm sure I'm gonna see you real soon for some other fun work. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
having me. This was fun.
Yeah.
Thanks, Pawi and Tristan.
Well, welcome to Kumu. I guess you're gonna
Parang si
start
Siege
on
parang
Kumu
ano,
now.
hindi na ako ulit dito sa mga to.
Yeah.
Hoy, hindi
Parang labo ng
naman.
I thought she was like
kidding.
they
Legitimate
said it was a
natuwa
career
ako.
podcast.
Sa pag
Oh
dance
no.
No,
podcast na kami,
legitimate
ano,
natuwa
we'll bring
ako.
you. Yeah,
Yay.
naka,
Well, maybe we'll have you again in the future, maybe in a different capacity because you do so much stuff. So
ikaw
anyway,
yung
I
host.
also
Sure.
I want to thank everyone
I'm
out
at
there.
your
Also,
disposal.
there you go. Stay tuned if if everyone hasn't already. If you follow Rappler on Facebook, Siege is also on some of our videos. So yeah, thank you out there for listening and watching. If you haven't already, please follow Rappler on all platforms. You can catch us on Kumu by following Rappler.com, Rappler DOTCOM. And you can follow the Hustle Inside the Industry podcast on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. We bring you a new episode every Monday so you can start your week with a little motivation. See you there. Bye. Waves.